I'm Peter Zuidema, my friends call me Zeter, and I consider you my friend. When I or anyone else throws around terms like human-centered design, UX/UI design, and so many other impressive sounding jargon, what actually is being said is designing something with users in our mind. It means designing something usable. But what is usability? Why is it important that we design a usable product? Let's dive in, shall we? See this? This is a hammer. Give it to a kid who has never seen a hammer before and I'll bet you that it will be smashing things in no time. This is the purpose of a hammer. A pretty good usable design. Using it properly to accomplish more complex tasks such as hitting a nail with the right amount of force is a whole different issue that I will address in a later video. Usability is about users being able to use a tool, software or machinery in the way it was intended with little to no additional learning required. I phrase that sentence specifically that way. Of course, it is never as simple as that. Think about a light switch, a simple one. You walk into a room, flip it and presto, you just created daylight. Look at the simplicity of using a pen or a pencil or glass with a drink or a spoon. Am I oversimplifying it here? Sure I am, but I'm not wrong. You can hand a glass or a spoon to virtually anyone and they know how to use it without you even having to explain anything. A light switch, like that one, you can ask someone to turn on the light and even while there's no turning involved, nor is the person doing anything with the light itself directly, they know what to do. That is good usability. If you learned something new from these statements? Yeah, probably not. But to understand why usability is that important, it is essentially that you understand that core principle. Usability is having users being able to use a tool or software or machinery in a way that it was intended with little to no additional learning. And we will build up from there. The fact that you are watching this video on this channel means it's nothing new to you. And most likely you are involved with creating a product that is many times more complex than a light switch. Well, that actually might be your problem right there. Usability is all about keeping things simple. And remember, with little to no additional education. So instead of thinking your product is more complex than a light switch, ask yourself the following. Is your product also more complex than a series of light switches that have to be switched in the right order? Is each process to use your product and each step in that process, even each action within each step of that process, more complex than a light switch interaction or something similar? If you think it is, your product might be overly complex and might need rethinking. The reason I say that is that to create a good design that your users are able to use, we need to know who the users are and what they already know. What experience do they have? Knowing this will help you create the product that users can effectively use, leveraging their prior knowledge and experience. I'm not saying that your product has to be simple to use, but the core actions that your users take to interact with your product, they should be. If this product is specifically for rocket scientists, I'm not saying that a random Zeter from the street should know what to do with it. However, a random Zeter from the street should have no problem flipping light switches in your product, although Zeter will probably not know what they will do. Rocket scientists know what to do with your product, not Zeter from the street. Zeter will not be productive with your product because he likely lacks the necessary context and experience. And that is perfectly fine. This all sounds so obvious and simple, but believe me, it is not. All design is difficult, and design that you don't see, like good usability, is even more so. Because this type of design relies heavily on research, creating a good, usable design that provides a great user experience through a well-designed user interface requires knowledge and specific skills. Your human-centered design specialist does not need to have the same level of knowledge as your intended user, but they should know how to apply a usable design to facilitate your intended users with their existing knowledge, thus making your product more usable. I know that many people might think this is overselling design work. After all, why don't we just create a design like any of the other similar applications and just be done with it? It takes less time, and better yet, why not have AI design it for us? You will have a great design in moments. I will get back to you on these topics in another video because they require a more in-depth explanation. But for now, keep those questions in mind. But even though designers hate it when their design skills are being questioned, these are valid considerations. Because why wouldn't you? The reason that we need to understand the user and know their skills and understand their skills and how they apply them, we need to apply that to our designs to make the product usable, specifically to those users. That should not come as a surprise. If you need to design an interface for a fighter jet, you may assume that your user knows how to fly one. Or if you need to design a product for use in a car, you can expect your user to have learned how to drive. You will be able to use design and interface patterns that people familiar with driving a car understand. You will not have to teach them how to drive. So the lesson we learned from this is that without applying usability to your design and product, it's all doom and disaster from here on out. Users will utterly hate you and your product. Just file for bankruptcy right away and let's get this over with. Is it that bad? Nah, of course not. If you're a smaller business and or working on a limited budget and cannot afford to hire an additional human-centered design specialist, I understand. There are steps that you can take to get at least halfway there. And you should. Implementing effective usable processes will enhance your product quality and increase its success. Period. And it does do that without being worse than what people expected. Wait, what? Good usability is invisible. I mean, literally, you don't see it. If you're a human-centered design specialist, your user experience designer, your user interface designer, or your interaction designer did their work well, you don't see it. Nothing. You see it when it is done wrong. This is because users expect good usability. A good usable product is one that a person uses, it performs as expected, and the user can enjoy the result of their actions. Listening to music, solving equations on a calculator, watching TV without any additional convoluted steps. Yes, smart TVs, I have a bone to pick with you. And putting a nail in the wall with my beautiful hammer. I want to be able to do all that without frustration or unexpected, unnecessary challenges. The moment you skip the steps to come up with a good usable design for your product is when you risk creating obstacles that prevent your product from performing as intended. And if a user hits an avoidable obstacle, they get frustrated. And when a user becomes frustrated, they may not want to use your product anymore. They become less productive or even make mistakes and most likely will tell their friends and coworkers. They will send emails or make calls to your support department requiring additional support documents that could be avoided and thus saving additional time and money for your business. And in some situations, mistakes can be disastrous. Think about applications used in healthcare, legal systems, finance, and the military. So you will clearly notice the mistakes of a lacking usable design, but you won't see a good usable design at all. And that is a good thing. However, because you don't see the results of a good usable design directly, many people and businesses might not appreciate its importance. But believe me, it is. Look, I understand that many businesses may not have the manpower, time, or resources to conduct extensive research and hire a human-centered design specialist. I will address these scenarios and what you can do to take your first steps in implementing a better, more usable design without these resources into your product in another video. Because I can point you in the right direction. It will not be as good, and your miles may vary as hiring a dedicated specialist, but you will start to avoid making your product worse. However, if you are in a position where you have the resources and the human-centered design specialist available to join your project team, please do so. There are numerous consultants in this industry who can assist you. Of course, there's much more to say on this topic, which I will do so in this channel. Knowing the importance of a usable product design is not the same as actually knowing how to do it, but we will get to that later. Alright, that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that it may have piqued your interest in why implementing a good, usable design into your product is not only a good idea, it is a great business decision. And if you're a designer yourself and fighting an uphill battle to get people to understand why they need to pay attention, please forward this video to them and let's talk some sense into them. And with that, let me wrap up. If you have any ideas for future videos, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.